So let's move on to the next topic here, which is the World Rugby 15th Player of the Year and also the 7th Player of the Year list that has come out. Now, for the 15s, man, obviously, there has been a lot of criticism. I'm very happy as an Australian. I'm very happy about this list. But the 4 players that have been mentioned are Antoine Dupont from France, Michael Hooper. I did say it last week as a bit of a joke, Michael Hooper, and he is there as one of the top 4 candidates. They've got Maro Itoje from England and then Samuel Korevi from Australia. So 2 Aussies here. But the reason why people are criticising it is because there's no South Africans and there's no Kiwis. There's no anybody from those 2 teams. And look, New Zealand has still won the Rugby Championship. I can personally, here we go. Here comes the South Africans in my head. I can personally understand South Africa not being nominated here. They did lose 2 to Australia. They did lose one of those games to New Zealand. And they did lose to Argentina, sorry. Who did they lose to beforehand? No, they won the British and Irish Lions series, didn't they?
Yeah, they won 2-1, sorry.
2-1. Look, I can understand to an extent why. Could you name me a player? Actually, respond with what your thoughts are in regards to this, but could you also name me a player from South Africa that you believe deserves a spot out of any of these 4 guys?
So I think that a lot of Springbok supporters are a little bit disappointed that not just in this category, but a lot of other categories, there aren't really many Springboks players in there. I know that for the coaching, there is no mention of the South African coach.
Who are the coaches? I forgot to actually bring that up.
It is Jacques Neighbour. I can't say his name to pronounce it or to save myself, really. But, I believe that he was one that people did say maybe he should have gotten a little bit of recognition. But also, like you mentioned, we're not seeing anyone from the number 1 team or the number 2 team in the world, but there are 2 Australians on that list. And I think people were saying maybe Samu Kerevi, out of all of the names, would be the player to take out of there due to the fact that he hasn't played really too many games. I think he played about 3 or 4 for the Wallabies, didn't he?
Yeah, but in the same sense, he was absolutely a dominant figure in those games. But when you think about it, only 4. I don't personally believe that you should ever be allowed to have 2 players. When you've only got 4 positions here, why are you taking half of those positions from 1 team and taking out the number 1 and 2 country? Like I said, I definitely believe in All Black. But then again, what All Black would you put in over Samuel Korevi?
So I think the South African that a lot of people would have liked to see in there was Lukhanyoam as one of the players who could have been
I wouldn't put him above Kerevi, though.
Although he did play a lot more games than Samu Kerevi type thing. But
was he as influential, though?
I'd say he was overall for the British and Irish Lions tour. He had a big impact for the Springboks being able to get the win because, yes, Samu Kerevi, he had a very good season, don't get me wrong, about that most defenders beat him, most clean breaks, pretty much most everything, and he didn't even play all the games of the Rugby Championship, but they were games up against Argentina and also up against the Springboks. That one is fair enough, I would say, but kind of that, I think there's still a little bit of that argument because I know people wanted to see Will Jordan for the All Blacks, but I think him as one of the, he was nominated for the upcoming player, wasn't he? The young player of the year alongside, it was Marcus Smith, Lewis Rees-Sammer, and also Andrew Callaway. So that one, that's going to be a hard one to decide on.
That's really tough, actually. That's really tough.
But yeah, it's interesting. I know that Artie Savia for the All Blacks was another one that people were saying, because I looked, of course, on social media to see what the general population's reaction was to all of these awards. And I know that with it being 50% Australian, there weren't too many happy people at this stage. But
obviously Michael Hooper deserves to be there 100%.
Yeah.
If anyone argues that, they're just ridiculously stupid. Like, straight up, if you're listening and you think that Michael Hooper doesn't deserve to be there, please, you're ridiculous and learn rugby, right? Michael Hooper deserves to be there. But Samuel Kerevi, I can argue. I can argue why he shouldn't be there. Maro Itoje, yeah, fair enough. And Antoine Dupont, obviously, he's going to be there. Itoje, you could even technically argue, I'm not going to lie, you could even technically argue with Itoje for a couple of other players, and especially the likes of Artie Savia, who's been unbelievable for the All Blacks, in my personal opinion. I would put Artie Savia over Samuel Kerevi as an Australian, and I personally would even consider putting Lukhanyoam over Maro Itoje. I think Itoje has been great, but I also think it's a bit of a name factor. I think it's the name factor that he's got in there. Would you disagree?
Although he has been, I guess they've considered the British and Irish Lions tour as well as, I don't know when the year is kind of cut off. I guess it's from when the last awards were, perhaps. Yeah. I think it's that influence in the maul and the line-out that is really kind of pushing him. Because I know other people were saying about Alan Wynne-Jones possibly getting a slight mention there.
I think Wales were never going to get a mention once they lost to Argentina twice.
The thing is, once you've got 4 people, cutting it down to only 4 rather than having around that 10 or so, it does mean that unfortunately there's some very big names that will be missing out of these. But I think, Yeah, it is pretty tough for them to be able to just pick the four, because I saw the likes of, even for the sevens, we could probably transition into that. They've only been able to pick four, and those four you would have to argue are definitely the best four for that option.
Oh,
In
absolutely.
some
I don't
regards.
think anyone can disagree with these sevens ones. So we'll get into that now. I will say this in regards to the amount of the numbers that you do have when it comes to the selections, like the short list, is that in FIFA you have a lot more. I think you have like 10, or actually I think you originally started off with like 20 or 30, and then it gets nailed down from there. I think to calm everyone down, the best thought process is if they want to go with those four behind the scenes and know that that's who they're going to be selecting, then cool. But put out a top 20 or top 30 so that everyone can see their players' names there as a chance, and then they can be talking and getting that can create chatter. This is just really this is social media marketing 101. Like, this is real basic kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the professionals don't understand this. Like, you're always going to get people hating on your list if you don't mention a player that deserves to be mentioned. And there are a lot of players that deserve to be mentioned here. That's why. Chuck out a top 20 short list, or even if you want to chuck top 30 short list, you have all the best players in the world, or top 15, it doesn't matter. At least you're going to get the likes of Adi Savea, Lukanya Wam, even Will Jordan, Alan Wynne-Jones, Maratoje, everyone. You can chuck everyone in there. And then from there, you already know your top four, and then you will then transition to the next one. People will complain, but at least their player got a mention to say that you're respecting that player as a part of this little core group of guys. Very simple social media stuff, but obviously I don't understand why people don't get that when it comes to social media side of things. I guess being a fan, maybe you understand a lot more about it.
I think also what makes it worse is the fact that before the awards, I believe I saw a month or so ago, they were saying that the articles were that it is going to be the player's choice, or like as in like the fans' choice of the players who are going to be nominated. But then a lot of people are going, how'd that happen? That we have got Samu Kerevi there if we are getting to actually, I guess, pick our top four, or even if it's like pick 5 names on this list that you think of your 30 short list who should be up there, and then just take the polls, whoever the most voted ones are, and then kind of put them up.
See, the catch-22 with having fans vote is then you get buddy morons who vote for stupid people who aren't that great and have no real impact because it's their friend or they like them more. It's like, if you're voting for legitimate reasons and voting for Lukanyuam over Samu Kerevi, fair enough, man. Like, that's great. If that's your opinion, that's great. But if you're going and voting for some dude from Italy to be voted for, and Italy did well against the Kiwis, but still got beaten comfortably. If you're going and voting for some Rando Tando, some bloke, Barry from the Bottle, remember Barry from the Bottle? He's turning up again. You're voting for him. And then we're seeing a player like, Antoine Dupont missing out because Barry from the Bottle got there. I'd flip my shit. And that's the problem with letting fans vote for it.
The thing is, as well, like social media, the way that it is, people would see Barry from the bottom on the list, and then it would be hashtag give Barry the player of the year. And
everyone would vote for him.
All of a sudden, Barry would become
Bassa. He's a W. He's a champion. But let's move on from that. Obviously, those four. Who do you believe will win it? Just quickly.
I think it's between Dupont and Michael Hooper, and I think it will heavily depend on, I guess, what factors they are looking at for it, because I could see both of them winning it, but I think Dupont at the moment definitely has the vote of the Northern Hemisphere, whereas it would be Michael Hooper has the vote of the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, but I also know Kiwis and South Africans might not want Michael Hooper to win that, because I see a lot of complaints. Like, I don't understand why. Like, I can respect the Kiwis and South Africans, but apparently when it comes to Australia, a lot of people do. Like, so there's a large percentage of normal people who have a good idea about rugby and can respect other nations, and there's also a small minority of people who just can't seem to respect, so they will vote for the opposition just because screw Australia. You know what I'm saying? But I would obviously, like, personally for me, I think that. I think Michael Hooper should win it. But then again, I'm a Wallabies fan, so of course I'm going to think that. But I know how much he brings to this team. And I know when we have a full team, we win 5 games in a row. And I know that with 8 players out, 9 players out, we just pushed England for the entire 80 at Twickenham with basically their full team in. So I know what Michael Hooper brings to this team. Dupont, they haven't been playing great. He's been still playing fine. But in the same sense, I don't think he's as influential to the French team as Michael Hooper is. Because I think if you take Hooper out, and that's why there's going to be a big problem this week with no Hooper against Wales, I think you'll see the difference. I think you'll see the difference. I don't think we're going to get beaten by 50, like the joke was that Hamish said before this podcast. But I definitely debatably say Australia don't win this game, but we'll see what my tips are at the end. But we've been going on for quite some time on this, so we need to move on here into the sevens just quickly. So you were very close with your pronunciation before the podcast, Hamish, but the 4 nominees here is Juita Waningolo from Fiji. Obviously, fantastic player, man. I'm actually surprised another player didn't make it. Napoleone Bolava is the other player there from Fiji. They've also got Scott Curry from the Kiwis and obviously Marcos Moneta from Argentina. What were your thoughts on these 4?
I'm quite excited to see what way they go with it because, like we were mentioning about Marcos Moneta when they were able to get that like bronze medal at the Olympics, like the way that he played in that competition, like that was the first time I've ever seen him play, and he seems like he is going to be the young and up and coming talent. I'm interested to see whether or not he does at some stage transition to union, because that seems to be what a lot of the sevens players do.
I have to throw you something here. Just read this right now. Napoleone Bolava is actually playing for the Drua.
Is he? Oh.
He just got signed on the Drua, yeah. And I know that Waningolo plays for Toulon right now.
So we're going to get to see maybe a few more players making a bit of an impact in the union world, which is awesome to see how players are so versatile nowadays. And every player that you talk to who's played sevens, they say that your fitness from playing sevens just reaches a whole new level.
Absolutely.
That just means that you can go completely throughout the full 80. So hopefully we do get to see some nice impact being made, because I know a few of the other Fijian sevens players actually transitioning to NRL, if I'm not wrong now.
There's a couple that have gone to the Sharks, I believe, yeah. Or that was Australian sevens that have gone to the Sharks. I don't really know. I'm not too sure, because I know that obviously there's the Silktails. I think it's the Fijian Silktails who are in the New South Wales Cup, which is the step below the NRL. There's New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup, and Fiji is. They were meant to be in this year, but obviously we couldn't because of the pandemic. Or was last year? I don't know. It was one of the 2 years, or it was both years. Anyway, they were meant to be in last year, couldn't do it because of the pandemic. So Fiji Silktails in the NRL or New South Wales Cup is a transition point. I didn't really know about this, but maybe you could be right. Actually, no, there is a couple who went to maybe the Cowboys, maybe. But I don't think they're starting. I don't think they're starters for the Fiji team. I think they were just kind of around the overall list.
Yeah. So you asked me who I think will win player for the union side of the year. I will ask you, since you are more of a sevens man than myself, who are you given the sevens player of the year to out of these 4?
It's really tough because I really do want to give it to Marcos Moneta. I do. I know that he was unbelievable. I'm actually a little bit confused with Scott Curry. I like Scott Curry. He was one of my first ever interviews on my channel, BKR Sport, when he was at the Oceania Sevens, and I believe they actually might have won that Sevens. I can't remember. No, actually, Fiji won that Sevens. But I did speak to Scott Curry. Great bloke. But I just thought, I can't think of the Fijian's name right now that was even, for me, the best player of the Olympics. The big bopper. You know who I'm talking about?
Was it Tuimamba?
No, it wasn't Tuimamba. No, it wasn't Tuimamba.
There was, I remember.
You know who I'm thinking about, but you can't think of his name. I know, absolutely. I think I gave him as my player of the week. Can you give your thought process here while I Google this? Because it's going to frustrate me if I don't do it.
I think his name starts with T, if that does help you out at all. But at this stage, I would say for myself, it's a very tricky one to try and decide. I would say, Wainakolo was just, Wainakolo,
very good.
Wainakolo was very good.
Close enough.
Nailing these Fijian names. Tell you what, the game this weekend, or last weekend, Wales versus Fiji, I was having a shocker with the number 4's name. Still can't say it even when I say
Tuivuaka.
No, it was a T, but he probably is an argument of trying to be right up there, because they don't seem to have the same categories for the sevens as they do for the union. Because I probably would have had Marcos Moneta as like the up-and-coming player, similar to that category of Will Jordan, Andrew Callaway, etc. Whereas, Scott Curry definitely wouldn't be in that category, as he is getting slightly closer to the end of his career. So I would say, that's such a tough one for me to be able to decide. I would say it's either going to go. The thing is, I have a suspicion like they may go with Scott Curry, even though maybe he doesn't. I guess you could say
it's not that he's a bad player. He's a great player. I just don't think he outdoes the Fijians, who are the Olympic Sevens champions.
Do you think it could come down to people not really knowing the Fijian Seven side that well, which may be why someone like a Scott Curry will get it?
Napoleone, I think I've interviewed him too. I think his debut tournament was the Sydney Sevens back in 2020, the beginning of that year. He's a very good player, man. I really love watching Balada play. Wainingolo, very good player. I think he might be a bit underrated in regards to a lot of aspects. I think this might come down to, if I'm thinking about what it should come down to. It probably should come down to Monietta for how he literally pulled that Argentina Olympic Sevens team to bronze, and also Balada is just such a key influential figure inside that team. I'm always going to have a bit of a bias here to Balada here because I love watching him play and I think he's a very good player. I'm going to take Balada, but I would not be surprised if they go with Scott Curry. Not that it's no disrespect to Scott, but I just don't believe, I truly believe there should be 3 Fijians here. I truly believe there should be Tuivuaka, because Tuivuaka was, I personally believe, the best player in that Sevens tournament for Fiji. I think he was personally better than Balada and Waningola, and that's no disrespect to them because they were fantastic. But I think Tuivuaka was absolutely surreal and is my favourite player in the Sevens right now. So I think Tuivuaka should be this one, but I'll go with Balada just because it has to go to a Fijian. They've gone back-to-back gold medals, and they've continued a streak since 2013 with at least one player in this shortlist, by the way.
So they're definitely doing something right, you could say, the Fijians.
So who are you going? Before we move on, who are you going?
I'm not personally saying it, but I think they will give it to Scott Curry.
It wouldn't surprise me. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but it wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, no disrespect to Scott Curry, but just not my forte there for me. I think there are better players out there regardless of what happens.